32 players left. Shadow Bomb being used. Can Bugha make it to the top 25? 3 more points can be the difference between making it as our #1 player today or second place. Bugha still bouncing up, 30 players left, just so frantically looking around the team. For me, this is already a fantastic game for Bugha. You've got placement points. Another elimination! How about a second? Bugha, what are you doing? 2 elims come in, he's back up to near full HP, and he's in the top 10, and he's got all the materials he could ever need. Bugha, how are you making this happen? From no mats and no movement. 1 player nearby. Bugha at 3 elims, still ahead of the zone. He can absolutely win this game, Dr. How he does. But ladies and gentlemen, there's no way anyone beats him. Your Fortnite World Champion, Bugha! $3 million richer, the biggest individual prize victory in competitive gaming history. Millions watching online, and folks, he didn't narrowly win. He absolutely took the best Fortnite lobby in history.
Hello everyone, welcome to NeoUnrealist. Ah, yes. That was the scene a few days ago at the Fortnite World Cup that took place at Arthur Ashe Stadium here in New York City. $30 million in total prize money on the line in a competition that took place over 3 days. That young man that you saw there, a gamer tag Bugha, in IRL name Kyle Giersdorf, he won the Fortnite World Cup solo tournament, and he walked away with the first prize of, get this, $3 million. I mean, not bad for a weekend's work. Yes, young Mr. Giersdorf probably realized his dream come true, becoming an overnight millionaire while still a teenager by playing video games. But it's not all candy and nuts for Bugha. For shortly after it hit him that he just won $3 million, I'm guessing that he had what I assume was his first encounter with the IRS and the New York State taxman, with Uncle Sam banging him for full boat at the top marginal tax rate of 39.4%, for that top tax bracket. That's a staggering $1,182,000 haircut off the top, followed by New York State coming in for sloppy seconds at the clip of 8.82%. That's another $264,600 off of the gross amount. So that $3 million minus $1,446,600 that the government snatched away from this kid before the money even touched his hands. No doubt already that's created a new Republican voter when he's old enough to register to vote in a couple of years after this abject lesson in government theft. But no, this is not really a video about Bugha or even the ridiculous notion that somehow any government is entitled to half of someone's income or profit. It's not even primarily about the fact that an eSports event was just held in an open-air stadium in front of thousands of live spectators, and $30 million in prize money was handed out to the competitors while millions upon millions of people watched via live stream over 3 days. No, this video is about the article written by Keith Stuart of The Guardian. That's a UK left-wing newspaper if you're not familiar with it. The article was titled, "Not one of the Fortnite World Cup's 100 finalists was a woman. Why?" I mean, come on. Here we go again. First off, if we're going to get technical, none of the solos 100 finalists was female. There was also a duos tournament on Saturday, which also had 100 finalists. Don't think there were any female competitors for that either. So call it 200 finalists. I'm not going to count the Pro-Am because they played for charity and the celebrities were invited. So that I don't really count that necessarily as esports competition. But when you add up the solo and the duo tournaments, call it 200 players. The tournament was open to anyone who qualified, so women could have entered. There was no barrier to entry. You had to just go through the grind of qualifying over the course of several months of qualifying matches online, to earn the invite to the Fortnite World Cup. Now, understand, just showing up at the place as one of the top 100, you got $50,000 just walking in the door. So, I mean, this was the ultimate form of meritocracy. You had to win your way into the tournament. Now, in case you're thinking to yourself, hey, Neo, of course there were no women in the finals. Girls don't play these games. Au contraire, viewer. Epic says that the player base for Fortnite is an unusually high for a hardcore video game, 35%. Now, some speculate that's because of Fortnite's bright, almost cartoonish art style as opposed to a more gritty or realistic game like, say, Call of Duty. It's just more lighthearted, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So given that it's a free-to-play game, Fortnite, there are hundreds of millions of players globally. So that 35% figure means that there are at least tens of millions of female players who play Fortnite to some degree or other. Obviously, some are going to be casuals. Some may have picked it up for a little while and put it down. And you're going to have others, the small number that are probably hardcore, everyday, hours and hours a day players. But so it's not that there aren't any girls or women who play. The next area that the article delves into is the toxic masculinity gamer issue. The quote, hardcore video game community that's dominated by males who just love to hurl misogynist invective at female players online. Okay. Yes, women and girls who play online, they do get harassed, and it can be very bad at times. But this phenomenon is not unique to female gamers. Male gamers, even in games that have no female players in it, they can and will pick on, verbally abuse, and in general just act like real jerks just as much with each other, as they do with girls. I mean, I say this as someone, I don't like when girl gamers get ragged on by other players if I'm playing during a match. I'd rather not play while hearing such stupid nonsense. But in the end, that's just what it is, and it's up to the individual gamer to tune that out. If you're going to fold up and collapse into a ball of tears because some 14-year-old kid told you to go make him a sandwich, you probably have next to zero chance of winning a competitive video game tournament. I mean, in the article, he cited the example of Lunar Cats, a popular CSGO streamer. She posted video of some trash talk that she received from other players while playing the game. Now, granted, she was annoyed enough about it to post it to her Twitter account and complain about it, but the bottom line was Lunar Cats played her game, turned the tables on the trash talkers later on, who are now known to the world as dumbasses who can't control what comes out of their mouths. And now the two offenders got banned a couple of days from the game. You might say they got off light, but whatever. Obviously, just because she ran into a couple of horses' asses in a pickup game with strangers, I doubt she's going to quit CSGO over it. But no doubt, there would be more than a few young women, who might quit over if they encountered this kind of behavior over and over. So I don't dispute that. But my point is that despite what the author of the article is saying about no differences between males and females, that right there is among, the differences. If you call a man a name, whether online or in real life, face to face, the odds are he's going to respond by not by breaking down and crying or anything passive. Odds are, at the very least, another male, when insulted, is going to respond with an equal, if not more, provocative insult. In some cases, in many cases actually, this is understood to be lighthearted, a verbal joust where, so long as things don't go too far, or you bring mothers into it, for example, men just let that stuff slide off their backs, and when the game is over, the same two guys that were calling each other gay, weak, or whatever, they're going to be bullcrapping with each other about playing another game or talking about football or whatever. I mean, as a kid, I can remember getting into a couple of fistfights during arguments over, say, a game of wiffle ball or touch football, where 10 minutes later, you switch teams and now you're playing with the same guy you were just hitting and you're exchanging high fives. It's just how guys are. Now, I don't see that kind of behavior from women usually. In general, from my experience, they don't tend to get physical unless they actually do mean to do someone harm, a legitimate enemy. Or, in those times when they get into a verbal altercation, it seems like it's, a real fight. There's real emotion going on. I don't see women insulting each other the way guys do and just leaving it at as just verbal horseplay. So here's the caveat, hashtag not all. I have known a couple of female gainers who did like to talk garbage while playing. There's always a small minority of women who are more aggressive than the norm, and that's what we're talking about here. The mistake people make with the with arguments about sex differences is one where they tend to cite, where they try to equalize the most extreme cases where the equality argument just breaks down. You see, Joe Gamer, the average guy, let's say, who plays video games, is probably about the same skill level as Susie Gamer, who, if she plays a game for the same amount of time as he does, one is just as likely to beat the other. But in the case of competitive eSports, in this case, Fortnite World Cup, remember, you're talking about the top 100 players in the world. The top 100 players out of over 100 million players. At that level of play, at the extreme top, where the tiny and minute advantages that any tiny or minute advantage you might have, like the advantages that males have over women in certain categories like reaction time, hand-eye coordination, and spatial visualization, when these things come into play, that tends to weed out female competitors. In many categories, while men and women will tend to have the same average ability overall across the entire population, it's at the extreme ends of the distribution where, at the best and at the worst end, that men are distributed wider in a bell curve. So there's going to be more awesome players. There's also going to be a bunch of crappy male players, whereas the women tend to cluster around the center, the average. Simply put, there's just going to be more men who are at the top 1% of a task than women when it comes to, the categories I mentioned. So this is one of the areas that I mentioned previously where men have a clear advantage is the aforementioned spatial ability, spatial visualization. Studies show, that a male advantage in what's called mental rotation and assessing horizontalness and verticality, an important skill in playing video games because, you're just looking at geometry more or less, or at least a two-dimensional representation of 3D geometry. Now we're talking about an advantage that probably, measures out in fractions of a second. But when you're playing against your sister, that fraction of a second advantage probably doesn't mean a heck of a lot. She could probably compete with you. But to reach the top 100 Fortnite player in the world, at that level, it's those little milliseconds that these players are better than the others that make the difference between winning and losing. I mean, it's likely why for every girl gamer who could compete at that level, there's probably more than 100 male players. So how do we know this means anything? Just take the females out of it. Look at the average age of these top 100 solo players who competed. It was 16 years old. What do you think? Guys who are 30, 40, 50, 60 years old, they don't want $3 million? There are Fortnite players who are boomers. But think about this. There are streamers who stream Fortnite all day and night, who everybody knows can play, or at least could. Where was a guy like Ninja? Ninja did not qualify for the Fortnite World Cup. How is that possible, you might ask? Ninja's probably the most famous and highest paid Battle Royale game player in the world. He wasn't good enough for the Fortnite World Cup? Well, got news for you. Ninja's 28 years old. It's well known that as you age, yes, even in your late 20s, as crazy as it sounds, you've got Korean pro gamers who by the time they're 30, they're shot because they can't keep up anymore. As crazy as it sounds, you lose that few fractions of a second off your reaction time. That's enough to knock you basically from the top level of play. Yes, you could still beat 99.9% of the rest of the players in the world, but we're talking about the very best at this point. So that just that little fraction of a second means that much. And at that level, every one of those players, they've all got a lot of skill at the game. They've all got a lot of experience from grinding 10 or more hours a day playing. You watch some of these streamers, you don't even know when they sleep. The difference between them in Twitch reaction time, in a game like Fortnite, it could be just those fractions of a second that Ninja slowed down, even at the age of 28, from when he was just a few years younger, that kept him from qualifying. So the guy who won and dominated the 6-game solo tournament, Bugha, he's 16 years old. So it's not just girls who you won't see at the top 100. There are, male millennials who've probably already aged out of being able to compete in this type of competition, for best in the world. So are there those so-called unicorns out there? Those special snowflake girl Fortnite players who, if they did play and grind out 10 plus hours a day for like a year, could they be good enough to play in future Fortnite World Cup events? Of course. But if this guy's expecting 50-50 representation, or even, double digits representation, like 10 out of 100, it's not likely. The FaZe Clan, however, just to give you an example of one of those quote-unquote unicorns, announced at the Fortnite World Cup that they just inducted their first girl ever to join their clan. Basically a team for you non-gamers who are watching. She's known as Ewok. She's a Fortnite streamer, and she's known for being deaf. And clearly she's good. I mean, she's good enough to join the FaZe Clan. So here you have an example of a girl who's put in thousands of hours, that are necessary. And given that she's deaf, so I guess she didn't have to endure the trash talk from the misogynist gamers. But anyway, to be good at a game without having the audio cues because she's deaf to hear like gunshots or footsteps or traps being laid to let you know where your opponents are or that you're about to be attacked, she has to be very good to have to rely purely on her knowledge of the game to play without audio cues that other Fortnite players take for granted. So anyway, the point is, Ewok is one of those rare birds, a girl who is, combines these elements of being a hardcore gamer and a girl who's made the choice that not as many girls make compared to boys to spend a lot of their time doing this activity, who has the combination of quick reflexes, hand-eye coordination, visual spatial acuity, and the tenacity to play thousands of matches day after day, week after week, month after month, to get good enough that one of the most well-known pro gaming clans in the world made her a member. So it's not discrimination, people. These video game companies like Epic desperately want more women in eSports. I mean, what do you think? They don't want to make more money? Big corporate video game development companies and publishers like Epic, they're not anti-feminist. They tend to skew to the left anyway. They're capitalists looking to make more money. More women playing means more microtransactions, more V-Bucks are being sold, means more money for them. So you better believe if there's women out there who can play, the opposite is true. They're going to make every effort to make sure that women like that get an opportunity to play in esports if it's at all possible. Now, the problem is, if it's going to remain a meritocratic sport and not some affirmative action, players are determined by invitation type of thing, those women are going to have to play and win in the qualifying rounds to make it to the big stadium where the big prize money is being handed out. That's all for this NeoUnrealist. To help the channel, like the video, leave a comment below, or hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. And click on the notification bell to keep up with the newer content. Share the video on social media because YouTube doesn't suggest the little independent creators anymore. It's all about the big corporate behemoths now. So to go above and beyond the Call of Duty, you want to toss your hard-earned dollars, your V-Bucks into the tip jar, follow the links below to Subscribestar, PayPal, or even Patreon if you're still on that platform. BitChute viewers, you could still click on the green tip pledge button below on the player. And, if you're still here after this long diatribe on gender equality for people who sit in chairs and stare at glowing panes of glass while twitching their thumbs and fingers over computer peripherals, tick off another notch towards your diehard achievement. Thanks for watching.
Bugha waits patiently and plans out his next move. This is going to be the deciding factor. In a fierce lobby like this, Bugha can't risk anything. Only 6 games to play tends to force a lot of people on edge. A few milliseconds could be the cause of life and death.